I still remember the sound of the front door slamming that night. It was sharp like a gunshot, echoing through the apartment and into the hollow parts of my chest. She had yelled it, that sentence that split everything open. "You don't need to know where I am." Her voice was trembling, angry, defensive. It wasn't the first fight, but it was the first time she said something that didn't sound like us. The silence afterward was suffocating. The kind that hums in your ears when you're alone with something you can't unhear. I stood there in the kitchen, hands still wet from washing the dinner plates she hadn't touched. The city lights bled through the window, streaking her half-empty glass of wine in red and gold. I stared at that glass like it held the answers I was missing. For a long time I told myself it was just work stress. That maybe she needed space. That she wasn't drifting away. Just caught in something she didn't want to drag me into. But deep down I already knew. It's strange how your body notices before your mind does. The late-night showers. The constant phone checking. The scent of a cologne that wasn't mine clinging faintly to her coat. I didn't want to believe it. God, I needed to believe her. But belief, I learned, is just another form of blindness. The next morning she acted like nothing had happened. She walked into the kitchen wearing my old t-shirt, hair still wet from the shower, humming softly. "Morning," she said, kissing my cheek like she hadn't set fire to everything 12 hours ago. I forced a smile. "Morning." She poured herself coffee, scrolling through her phone like always. I watched her thumb flick quickly, too quickly. Messages disappearing before the screen could even lock. When she caught me looking, she smiled faintly, but her eyes didn't meet mine. "What?" she said, a playful edge hiding the tension in her voice. "Nothing," I lied. "Just watching you." Her smile faltered just slightly. That was the first real crack. 3 days later, I called in sick to work and followed her. I hated myself for it. I told myself I wasn't that person. But love makes you irrational, and betrayal makes you quiet. You start whispering things to yourself you'd never admit out loud. She said she was going to a client meeting in Clifton. I watched her car pull out, then followed at a distance. Every turn she made felt like a heartbeat. Every stoplight a countdown. She parked outside a small cafe near the marina. It was the kind of place we used to go on Sundays before things started falling apart. I sat across the street, watching through the windshield. 10 minutes later he walked in. Tall. Clean-cut. The same man from her company's gala. The one she'd said was just a coworker. When she saw him, her whole face lit up in a way it hadn't for me in months. He reached for her hand across the table, and she didn't pull away. That was it. No kisses. No public scene. Just a simple touch that felt louder than betrayal itself. I drove home in silence. The city blurred past, but my mind was sharp, cutting itself on every memory. Every time she said, "You're my home." Every promise, every quiet night spent dreaming about a future she'd already walked away from. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just shut down. For 2 days I said nothing. I waited, watched, collected what I needed. Texts she forgot to delete from the shared tablet. A few credit card transactions that didn't add up. Then came Thursday night. She came home late again, hair a mess, lipstick slightly smudged. "Where were you?" I asked. "Out," she said simply, slipping off her heels. "Out where?" "You don't need to know where I am." That was it. The same words. Sharp. Final. But this time I was ready. I looked at her, really looked at her, and said quietly, "Daniel. Or should I say your coworker who just got promoted? Or maybe Alex, your little weekend secret." Her face drained of color. The mask fell in slow motion. She froze. Completely still. Then I reached into my jacket pocket and handed her the envelope. Inside were printed photos from that cafe, the credit card statements, and the messages she thought she'd erased. She stared at it, shaking slightly. "You went through my things?" "I went through our life," I said. "Turns out it wasn't ours anymore." For a moment she said nothing. Then in a small broken voice, "I didn't mean for it to happen." "Neither did I whispered. "But it did." Tears welled up in her eyes, and I saw genuine regret flicker there. But regret is a useless currency when trust is already bankrupt. She reached out, maybe to touch me, maybe to beg. I stepped back. There was no yelling. No revenge. Just the quiet, hollow end of something that used to be sacred. I told her to take the weekend to pack her things. She didn't argue, just nodded, tears streaming down her face. As she left the room, she whispered, "I still love you." I didn't answer, because sometimes silence is the only truth left. Later that night, I sat alone in the same kitchen where it had all started. Her wine glass still stood there, dusty now, catching the faint city light. I picked it up, turned it in my hand, and for the first time it didn't hurt to let it go. It shattered softly against the sink, pieces scattering like memories, sharp, glimmering, irretrievable. And with that sound, I finally understood. She wasn't the only one who had been leaving. I had too, just slower and quieter. Until now,